do you merge multiple genres well when they're opposites? How do you write a horror romance or a mystery comedy in a way that feels natural? Is it even possible to combine two opposite genres? Today, I'm sharing 2 tips on combining genres in your writing. Thank you Brainy Eggs Coffee for this video suggestion. Also, sorry if I butchered your name. Without further ado, let's get started. Hey guys, Nour here, and welcome back to my channel. For those visiting for the first time, hello! I'm the fantasy author of the novel Divinity Falling. Be sure to subscribe for weekly writing advice videos. We're all familiar with all the different genres, but how do we combine more than one genre in our story, especially if they're complete opposites, such as horror and romance? That's where my first tip comes in. Always choose a main genre for your story. Even if you're writing a horror romance, your story can't be equally both. Otherwise, you don't really have a genre. Remember, a genre is more than just the elements in your story. It's a category that will help you market your book and even tell bookstores which bookshelf to place your book on. Now, the problem with advertising multiple genres is that bookstores and readers wouldn't know what to do with your book. Does it go in the horror section or the romance section? Now, the more genres you add to your story, the more complicated categorizing gets, which only confuses readers and most likely makes them uninterested in your story. For example, you don't want to label your story as a historical horror romance comedy. This is trying to reach so many readers that it will probably reach none. Again, if you can't easily label it, which bookstore bookshelf will it go on? The answer is none. So try to keep it simple. If you really want to have more than one genre within your story, then choose a main one that your story is heavy on. Is your story a horror first with romance sprinkled into it? Or is it a romance that just happens to have elements of horror? And yes, it is possible to choose. Consider your story. Is it a must for your love interests to get together by the end? If they don't, does that ruin the story? Then you have a romance with elements of horror. Now, if the opposite is true, then you have a horror story with a romantic subplot. This can apply to all genres. For instance, Divinity Falling is a fantasy first with a romantic subplot, because even if my characters didn't have any romantic feelings, my story would still go on uninterrupted. Now, here's the second and final tip I have for you. After you've chosen your main genre, be sure to include elements from both genres in your story and sprinkle them throughout. Though, again, make sure your main genre is constantly at the heart of your story. If you have a dark comedy, for example, your main purpose is to make readers laugh. The comedy is your main genre, but the humor itself just happens to be dark. So your goal is to make the story funny throughout, but with an added dark element to the humor. And the same thing applies if you're writing a romantic story based on a historical event. You must decide if your purpose is telling history or concentrating on the romantic aspect. If it's romance you're after, then you would concentrate on the lovers, all while ensuring that the historical events are accurate in the background. You would still keep informing readers of the historical events to center them in the time period, but you wouldn't forget that your main goal is telling a love story. This is well done in the movie Titanic. It is a historical retelling of a tragic event, but it is also a romance. However, if we wanted to classify Titanic under one main genre, it would be romance. After all, the story follows the relationship of 2 characters and how they fall in love. The ship sinking is the historical event happening in the background. So, to sum up my second tip, remember to sprinkle your secondary genre throughout your story, but make sure it's in the background. If you do it this way, the story will feel natural and believable. So that's all I have for you today. I'd love to know, are you writing a multi-genre story? If so, what are the genres? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. I put out weekly writing advice videos that will take your story to the next level. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day and to chat with me. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne, Lori B, and Alan J. Early from my shout out tier over on Patreon, as well as all my amazing patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And remember, Nour for president!